You won't believe what happened to us on a hike through a supposedly safe trail in the Smoky Mountains. We thought we were ready for anything the wilderness could throw at us, but what we faced was way beyond our wildest fears. As the sun went down and shadows grew longer, we found ourselves caught in a nightmarish situation that felt straight out of a horror movie. Our beautiful hike turned into a frightening journey through a place that made no sense. Strange lights, spooky whispers, and the constant feeling of being watched showed us that something was terribly wrong. We thought we were just lost, but the truth was much scarier. An unsettling mystery that made us wonder if we had barely escaped something much more sinister than just being lost in the woods. Get ready as we explore this chilling story of survival and the unknown. Story 1. The Stalkers in the Utah Wilderness. It was a crisp autumn morning when I set out for a solo hike in the Wasatch National Forest in Utah. The trees were ablaze with fiery reds and golds, and the air was cool and invigorating. I had just gone through a rough breakup, and I was seeking solace in the serene embrace of nature. The forest, with its ancient trees and winding paths, seemed like the perfect escape. I parked my car at the base of a narrow gravel access road and began my trek toward a remote lookout point that promised breathtaking views. The hike started off smoothly. I found myself immersed in the tranquility of the forest, the only sounds being the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant calls of birds. The isolation was therapeutic, a welcome break from the relentless noise of everyday life. About an hour into my hike, however, the sky darkened ominously. Dark clouds rolled in, and a light rain began to fall, turning the trail into a slippery mess. Not wanting to continue in the rain, I decided to head back early. The peace of the hike was abruptly shattered as I reached the trailhead and saw the sight that made my heart drop. My car was vandalized. All 4 tires had been deliberately slashed, leaving my vehicle incapacitated. Panic set in as I realized the gravity of my situation. I was stranded in a remote area with no cell service and no immediate way to get help. The serene escape I had sought had turned into a nightmare. I decided to hike back into the forest, hoping to find higher ground where I might get a signal and call for assistance. The forest, which had seemed so inviting, now felt oppressive and menacing. As I ventured deeper into the woods, the atmosphere grew darker and more unsettling. The light rain had turned into a steady downpour, and shadows danced eerily in the dim light. It wasn't long before I began to hear faint, rustling sounds behind me. My footsteps seemed to be echoed by another set of steps, just out of sync with my own. It was as if someone or something was following me, though every time I looked back, the forest remained still and silent. Nightfall approached with a swift, chilling finality. My fear escalated as the darkness enveloped the forest, and my only comfort was the hope of reaching the summit where I might finally get a signal. After what felt like an eternity of stumbling through the mud and rain, I reached the summit. My heart raced as I finally managed to get a signal and called the police. I reported my situation, feeling a fleeting sense of relief as I awaited their arrival. As I made my way back down, my sense of dread intensified. I noticed makeshift campsites hidden among the trees and heard the distinct sound of footsteps closing in behind me. My fear peaked as I realized I was no longer alone. It felt as if an entire group of unseen pursuers was following me. Their presence felt more than seen. The footsteps quickened, matching my own hurried pace. I sprinted through the forest, adrenaline pumping as I tried to evade the growing sense of menace. Finally, I reached the trailhead, where the police had arrived. They informed me that I had likely stumbled upon a secretive group of locals known for their strange and unsettling practices. My heart still pounded as I was escorted to safety, but the sense of being watched never left me. The experience left me shaken, with a lingering fear that someone, or something, had been tracking me throughout the ordeal. Even now, whenever I think of that day, the shadows of the forest seem to close in, and I can't shake the feeling that the wilderness still holds secrets just beyond the edge of the light. As I drove away, I couldn't help but glance back at the forest one last time. The once beautiful landscape now seemed sinister, a place where nature's tranquility had been overshadowed by a lurking terror. The Wasatch National Forest, which I had once sought for solace, had become a haunting reminder of a day when I was followed by the unknown. Story 2: The Vanishing Hiker in the Connecticut Woods. The day started off bright and inviting, a perfect day for a hike. I had planned a solo adventure in Dudleytown Forest, a place steeped in local legend and long abandoned since the 1800s. Rumors whispered of ghostly apparitions and unsettling occurrences, but my curiosity and thrill-seeking nature propelled me forward. The eerie allure of the forest beckoned, promising both adventure and a touch of the supernatural. I arrived at the forest entrance around noon, the sun high but failing to penetrate the dense canopy. The forest seemed to swallow light, casting deep shadows that danced and shifted with every step. An unsettling quiet pervaded the air. The usual chirping of birds and rustling of leaves were conspicuously absent. Every footstep felt louder than the last, amplifying the eerie stillness around me. As I pushed deeper into the woods, I noticed peculiar symbols etched into the bark of several trees. The markings were cryptic, almost runic, and seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. A chill ran down my spine as I tried to decipher their meaning. The forest's oppressive silence seemed to intensify as I ventured further, heightening my sense of unease. My anxiety grew when I stumbled upon a dilapidated cabin hidden among the trees. Its broken windows and sagging roof gave it a forlorn appearance, as though it had been abandoned in haste. An old rusted metal door creaked ominously as I pushed it slightly, revealing a dark interior. My flashlight barely penetrated the gloom, casting eerie shadows on the walls.
Horseshoes and
The cabin felt like a relic of another time, steeped in forgotten stories and haunted by the past. Determined to push past my fears, I continued on the path, only to suddenly come across a group of hikers. Their appearance was jarring. Dressed in outdated 19th century clothing, they seemed out of place in the modern world. They spoke in hushed, almost reverent tones, their faces obscured by wide-brimmed hats. Despite my attempts to engage them, they remained aloof, drifting away into the forest like shadows. Curiosity got the better of me, and I followed them, my footsteps crunching loudly on the underbrush. The trail they had left behind was unsettlingly silent, the forest eerily still. The further I followed, the more disoriented I became. The trees seemed to twist and turn, creating a labyrinthine maze that disoriented me. The hiker's tracks suddenly disappeared, leaving me in a clearing with no discernible path. Panic began to set in as I realized I was lost. The dense forest and failing light made navigation nearly impossible. I felt a sense of being watched, as if unseen eyes were following my every move. The oppressive darkness grew, and the distant sounds of the forest seemed to come alive with whispers and faint, eerie laughter. Desperate for safety, I attempted to retrace my steps, but found that the forest had transformed. The once familiar paths were now unfamiliar, twisted and labyrinthine. Every direction I turned seemed to lead me further into confusion. The unsettling quiet was occasionally broken by distant, ghostly cries, sending shivers down my spine. As night fell, the forest grew even more foreboding. Shadows lengthened and seemed to move on their own, creating nightmarish shapes that lurched toward me. My flashlight flickered erratically, casting jittery beams of light that did little to dispel the darkness. Fear gripped me as I felt a chilling breeze, like cold fingers brushing against my skin. In a moment of clarity, I spotted a small, flickering light in the distance. It looked like the glow of a campfire, a beacon of hope in the oppressive darkness. I made my way toward it, stumbling through the underbrush, only to find an abandoned campsite. The fire pit was cold, and the scattered belongings suggested that whoever had been there had left in a hurry. Just as I was about to turn away, I heard footsteps, heavy and deliberate, approaching from behind. My heart raced as I sprinted toward my car, the oppressive silence of the forest giving way to an unsettling cacophony of rustling leaves and snapping branches. I could feel the presence of something, or someone, chasing me, but whenever I glanced back, there was only darkness. Finally reaching my car, I fumbled with my keys, desperately trying to unlock the door. The sense of being followed was overwhelming, and I could feel a cold sweat on my brow. As I started the engine and drove away, I glanced back at the darkened forest. The eerie silence had returned, but now it felt like a menacing, hungry void. To this day, the memory of Dudley Town Forest lingers with a haunting clarity. The strange hikers, the ghostly cries, and the unnerving silence have left an indelible mark on my psyche. The forest remains a chilling reminder of how some places, shrouded in mystery and darkness, are best left unexplored. Story 3: The Lost Trail in the Smoky Mountains. One summer, my friend Jake and I decided to embark on a hiking adventure in the Smoky Mountains. We were both thrill seekers, looking for a challenge and the chance to escape the monotony of everyday life. Jake was always up for anything, and I was confident in our navigation skills. We chose a less traveled trail, known for its rugged beauty and eerie tales, hoping to find something extraordinary. The day started perfectly. The sun shone brightly, casting a golden hue over the forest. Birds chirped merrily, and the fresh mountain air invigorated us. As we climbed higher, we reveled in the stunning views and the sense of camaraderie. We joked about the spooky stories we'd heard about the trail, laughing off the idea of anything sinister lurking in the shadows. But as the sun began its descent, the forest transformed. Shadows lengthened and the temperature dropped suddenly. The once clear trail became overgrown and indistinct. We pulled out our map and GPS, but the terrain seemed to shift and change as if mocking our attempts to stay on course. The beautiful landscape now felt claustrophobic and menacing. The darkness fell quickly, and with it came an unsettling silence. The usual forest sounds, rustling leaves, chirping crickets, were replaced by an oppressive quiet. A strange chill ran down my spine as I realized we were completely disoriented. I turned to Jake, my voice betraying my anxiety. We need to find a way back, now. Just as panic began to set in, we noticed distant flashes of light moving through the trees. Relief washed over us. We thought we had stumbled upon another group of hikers or maybe a search party. Our hope grew as we heard faint voices carried by the wind. We hurried toward the lights, our hearts pounding with anticipation. But as we approached, the lights began to dance in eerie patterns. They moved in and out of view, as if deliberately evading us. The voices became indistinguishable whispers, and the forest seemed to swallow them up. We stopped in our tracks, feeling a cold sweat form on our brows. The once comforting lights now felt ominous and deceptive. Jake, trying to maintain his composure, suggested we keep following the lights. We pushed on, our steps quickening with each passing moment. The lights seemed to lead us deeper into the forest, their patterns becoming more erratic. It felt like a twisted game of cat and mouse, with the forest as our unfeeling predator. Suddenly, the lights disappeared completely. We were left alone in the oppressive darkness, the whispers replaced by a foreboding silence. The sensation of being watched grew stronger, and every creak of a branch or snap of a twig seemed magnified. Our breath came in shallow gasps as we stumbled through the underbrush, trying to stay calm. After what felt like an eternity, we stumbled upon a dilapidated cabin. It was hidden away, almost camouflaged by the surrounding trees. The sight of it made our skin crawl. The broken windows and decaying walls seemed to whisper secrets of long-forgotten terrors. We hesitated but decided to explore, hoping to find some clue about our surroundings. Inside, the cabin was dark and cold. The air was thick with mildew and decay. We searched the rooms, finding old furniture covered in layers of dust. It felt as if the cabin had been abandoned abruptly, as if something, or someone, had left in a hurry. The atmosphere was thick with an unspoken dread, and we quickly decided to leave. As we continued our trek, the forest seemed to close in around us. The trees loomed like dark sentinels, their branches clawing at the sky. Shadows moved in our peripheral vision, and we could hear what sounded like footsteps mirroring our own. Every rustle, every sound seemed to come from just beyond the edge of our vision. Hours later, exhausted and disoriented, we finally stumbled upon a ranger station. The sight of the building was a beacon of hope. We were greeted by concerned rangers who quickly took us inside. After we recounted our harrowing experience, the rangers looked puzzled and concerned. They informed us that there had been no search parties or other hikers in the area that night. The revelation left us with a chilling unease. The strange lights, the whispering voices, and the eerie silence remained unexplained. As we left the ranger station, the forest loomed behind us, a dark and inscrutable presence. The Smoky Mountains had revealed a side that was far more sinister than we had ever imagined, leaving us with a lingering sense that we had narrowly escaped something truly malevolent. Even now, whenever I think back to that night, a shiver runs down my spine. The Smoky Mountains, which once promised adventure and excitement, became a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lie hidden in the most beautiful of places. Jake and I agreed that some trails are best left unexplored, and some experiences are better left in the shadows. Hiking is a wonderful way to connect with nature, but these stories remind us that the wilderness can hold dangers beyond our imagination. Whether it's the feeling of being watched, mysterious disappearances, or unsettling encounters. These true hiking horror stories serve as a reminder to always stay vigilant and prepared. Have you ever experienced something strange while hiking? Share your stories in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more chilling tales from the wild.